Welcome Wargamers to day 4 of Khorne Week. Today we're talking all about Khorne's personal attack dogs, the Flesh Hounds, and also the unique Flesh Hound, Karanak. So before we get into the unique variant, let's talk about Flesh Hounds in general. Flesh Hounds are demons of Khorne. They are a bit of his essence broken off and formed into a semi-living being. They take the appearance of sort of a half dog, half reptile. They're extremely muscular. They are covered in scales, spikes, and this huge maw in the front. And they really have a designed and designated role. They are hunters. And these hunters are sent to track down anyone who's drawn Khorne's wrath. And they function like his personal canine unit. When not on the hunt, they reside in the depths of the Brass Throne, Khorne's kind of lair. Underneath there's kind of a cave where all the Flesh Hounds hang out, and they just chew on bones like dogs do and hang out there. But man, when Khorne busts out this big brass horn and bellows with it, all of the Flesh Hounds come running out. They know his commands. They go, they hunt, they feast on the prey and anyone who's near them at the time, and then come right back to the cave. Now, I say specialized in kind of a designed unit because they're not really built for a protracted long war. You don't see a lot of stories with these guys fighting attrition-style things. They mostly hunt specific targets as well as act as shock troops, right? They hit the first line of troops. They kind of are unleashed because they're faster than most Khorne things. Run up there, hit the first wall of dudes, and then kind of fall to the wayside as they start eating people on the battlefield. Now, every Flesh Hound wears something called the Collar of Khorne. This is a reoccurring theme amongst Khorne units, and it's their defining feature. If you didn't know, Khorne has his own forge, where he makes his own weapons of war and things like that. He has a demon running it, so he can have the greatest armor and weapons ever crafted. And in that forge, what happens was, anytime Khorne slays a wizard on the battlefield, because Khorne hates wizards, they take that wizard's body, drain it of all its blood, and the wizard's blood is infused with molten metal. And that demon in the forge then pounds it and forms it into the shape of a collar. When you put that collar on a dog, meaning the Flesh Hound, it exudes this power in an immediate area. The most important thing that this power does is it shuts down magic anywhere the Flesh Hound is. Now, for the longest time, I thought it was just because Khorne hates magic, and why wouldn't he give things, the ability to repel it? And that is absolutely accurate, but in the battle tome, it specifically says that it does this because people, when they know they're being hunted, will try to use magics to, throw off their scent, either have fake footprints or use illusions to kind of disguise themselves, things like that. Well, when the Flesh Hounds come at you, it shuts down any magic near them, so they're never going to be outwitted or confused, so you can't elude them. Now, at times they are used in larger battles, like I said, not as a prolonged unit for days and days of combat, but they are kind of built into a army structure as shock troops. If they see a lot of lightly armored targets in the front, they're going to unleash the Flesh Hounds, who are going to run up there and just massacre them with these giant fangs, huge claws. They just eat people straight on the battlefield, and importantly, they chase away cowards. So if anyone cuts and runs, all the people you lose from battle shock thematically are chased down and eaten by a Flesh Hound after fighting Khorne. And the last little note I have here about Flesh Hounds in general is that they're unique amongst a lot of demons in that they are given to mortals as gifts. Across all of the Games Workshop line, there are very few times where a demon is given to a mortal champion. As we know with Khorne Call, he gifts, Khorne gifts, Flesh Hounds to mighty champions for the purpose of cementing authority and giving a badge of approval by Khorne, so this champion is a cool guy, right? This is my servant, he follows me. But also the Flesh Hound is there to basically keep an eye on the champion, make sure that he is not weak in any way. But if you really think about it, there are very few other champions amongst the other gods who receive, pets, but really just any kind of demonic assistance that stays with them constantly. Very few times are demons assigned to people, so that makes Flesh Hounds very unique. So now that we've talked about Flesh Hounds in general, let's talk about the character variant of them, Karanak. While most Flesh Hounds can be assigned to armies or just stay home and base for hunting packs, things like that, they can be sent everywhere, but Karanak is unique because he typically stays with Khorne. The only exception is if Khorne wants to be personally represented on a given battlefield, he'll send Karanak, but for the most part he sticks around the Brass Throne with Khorne. And he acts as the alpha dog. The theme of canines and reptiles stuff, it's really typified by the idea of an alpha dog, someone who is the absolute authority in a given pack, and that is exactly what Karanak is. Amongst all of the super savage monsters that are hunting people for Khorne, he is the alpha male. and as such, he is Khorne's personal Flesh Hound. Some of his duties include just walking around the throne of Khorne, sniffing out people who have tried to sneak in. Remember, they're always playing the great game with one another, so there's always going to be a Tzeentchian plot to sneak into the Khorne base. And those kinds of things is exactly what Karanak is there to sniff out. In addition to that, sometimes, it says in the Battle Tome, Khorne demons will kind of get full of themselves and walk into the Brass Citadel at the big, base of Khorne, thinking that they're big stuff and that they're going to demand power or something like that, and Karanak will walk up and promptly eat them. And when he's not doing that, he sits right at the right side of Khorne, chewing on bones of the unworthy. Again, that imagery of like a king sitting there with his most trusted guard dog next to him is exactly what they're trying to convey. And the most defining feature about Karanak is that he has 3 heads. He's a giant flesh hound with 3 heads, and each one of them actually does something totally unique. It's important to note that, before we get started this, that Khorne sends Karanak to hunt specific people. If this person has really offended Khorne in a massive way, Karanak will start to hunt them. So each of these 3 heads does something to aid in that hunt. The first head tracks prey across space, meaning there's no physical place that you can run to. He can look across realms, see into the void of space itself. He will find you. He is able to always locate you at any time. No distance is too great for him. The second head tracks its prey through time. Karanak is unique in that he's sort of unaffected by time. He can see all the people who have ever offended Khorne in the past, and he can also see the offenses that will truly offend his master in the future. This is important because if you did manage to fall off the grid somehow, kind of like how Slaanesh, quote-unquote, fell off the grid, Karanak will be able to look back in time. We'll run with the Slaanesh example for here and see the Eye Elves locking him up in that kind of weird prison space. So, you know what I mean? He can look back and see where the person was and then start his search from there. So we got time, we have space, and the third head tracks prey in their own minds. What this means is when Khorne says, I want you to hunt this person, the second those words kind of sink into Karanak, they can actually read the thoughts of their prey. So you can never outwit them. You can't run away from them. Anytime you think to yourself, oh, I'll hide here, he just received that information. And this is so incredible because these 3 heads remind me very much of something I would see in like a Tzeentch army where you're reading thoughts, seeing the possible futures, and then also have a depth of knowledge about all of time and space, really. Very Tzeentchian stuff, but he does it in a way that really works with Khorne and keeps this kind of hunting pack mentality. And when he does have a prey, he will initially bark and all these other flesh hounds will come and join him. And something very interesting will happen. If you are the target, if you're the guy who's really ticked off Khorne, you'll start to hear growling and gnawing and scratches and barks and all these kinds of dog-like sounds. The whole point is that you are being hunted by Khorne, and it might take a day, a month, or a year. He's going to get you. And I love that idea of, Karanak can read prey's mind, and in return, the prey knows he's being hunted. Maybe on some level know they're being listened to, but it's that kind of maddening, you perpetually know that your doom is coming to you. And Karanak reaches the prey, kills it swiftly. There's not a whole lot of slaughter, that gore-filled stuff. Kills him, grabs the body, brings it back to the throne of Khorne and lays it before him. If the prey had put up a fight, then they're going to deem the skull worthy and Khorne will add it to his big trophy collection. If the prey tried to run or use magic, just generally act like a coward by Khorne standards, well, then they're going to strip the flesh and Karanak gets to chew on the bones like we talked about earlier. And as far as why these units are really awesome to learn about, I love how understandable they are. A lot of the demons, when you talk about Tzeentch and things like that, they're very abstract, very unrelatable. They're very cool thematically and things like that, but you can't get a sense of what they're like. But we here in the real world understand a hunting pack of dogs. We understand the alpha male mentality when it comes to nature and things like that. And there's just something so cool about the abilities that Karanak has, but then what Flesh Hounds do with the brass collar and things like that enable them to carry that real world kind of theme, bring it to the mortal realms, and make it so fantastical, right? Shutting down magic near them, tracking prey through time, space, and thought, which are all very kind of lofty, big things, but we can understand them because at the end of the day, they're kind of a dog. They're still assigned to people, given masters, they take commands, they hunt in packs, they have alphas, like they're understandable, and then it's that awesome combination of relatable and fantastic. And for all those reasons, Flesh Hounds and Karanak are awesome additions to Age of Sigmar. Khorne Week is wrapping up quickly, folks. Thank you all so much for watching. And if there is a Age of Sigmar lore question that you have or a video you'd like to see, go ahead and click subscribe and leave it in the comments down below. I read every single comment and try to respond to as many as possible, using them as inspiration for future videos. Obviously this week I'm doing Khorne stuff, but in the future I'm going to be going back to doing content that you folks request. And I look forward to seeing you in my next Age of Sigmar lore video. Thank you so much for watching, and happy wargaming.